All right, I thought I'd start out a survey of traditional Western theories of beauty uh, with what we might call the idealist theory of beauty, um, which I would associate in particular with the works of Plato and of the neo-Platonic philosopher Plotinus. Now, one of the classical sources for a theory of beauty is Plato's dialogue, the Symposium, which is quite an unusual dialogue. It's probably more poetic and more emotional than most Plato dialogues, although many of them have their moments along those lines. But Plato has Socrates, his hero and main character, at a drinking party with eminent Athenian citizens. And as they get drunker and drunker through this night of partying, they become ever more ecstatic about love and beauty. And in fact, Socrates ends up drinking everybody under the table, and he starts to monologue in this, as I said, this rather ecstatic vein about beauty. Now, one insight I think of the Symposium is that beauty is an erotic experience. It's essentially that probably if we were not sexual beings, we wouldn't experience beauty at all, which seems, more or less right to me, I suppose. Of course, probably the most famous bit of Plato is the theory of forms, according to which objects in this world are reflections of perfect objects in the realm of forms, or which contains their essences. Or you might think of it as a theory of the meaning of general terms. So, for example, what it is for something to be a chair is for it to reflect, represent, resemble, participate in the essence of the chair in the ideal realm of forms. Now, what's interesting about the Symposium, one thing that's interesting about the Symposium, is that it describes the way that one ascends from specific beautiful things and the appreciation of specific beautiful things, in particular the appreciation of the sexual appreciation of human bodies, in this case adolescent boys, which is often the case in Plato, to an appreciation of beauty in general, or supernal beauty, pure beauty in the realm of the forms. One learns the essence of beauty through the desire for individual bodies. Now, let me give you a brief quote here from the Symposium. Plato says, "One goes always upward for the sake of beauty, starting out from beautiful things and using them like rising stairs, from one body to two, and from two to all beautiful bodies. Then from beautiful bodies to beautiful customs, and from customs to learning, so that in the end he comes to know just what is beautiful." So the experience of love for people and the appreciation of the beauty of specific human bodies is a route to wisdom. It's a route to an appreciation of beauty as an ideal, or in the ideal realm. To make that ascent is to gain knowledge, and making that ascent is the ideal life of the philosopher, exemplified for Plato by Socrates and described by Socrates in the Symposium. Now, I might also mention the great neo-Platonic philosopher of the Roman era, Plotinus, probably still underrated in the history of Western philosophy. The Aeneids of Plotinus are an incredibly brilliant philosophical text, wild, kind of surreal, and using this idea of the ideal as a kind of God or source of the universe, from which all things emanate. Plotinus says, for example, that the most beautiful thing in the world is fire, because it's ethereal. It's half physical, half spiritual, and not only that, but it's beautiful in itself, in its color and form. and its elusiveness, its almost formedness. And he rejects views which we associate with Aristotle, as we'll see, among others, that beauty is a matter of the arrangement of parts or symmetry. He says that simple qualities can be beautiful, such as a single color or tone. And this is what we'd expect in a way from a Platonic philosopher, for whom unity is one aspect of the ideal. Okay, so I'll give you one little slice of Plotinus as well. This is from the first Aeneid. And here Plotinus associates beauty with formedness, precisely with unity. And anything that is well formed, anything in this world that closely reflects the singleness and purity of its form is beautiful. So a beautiful chair would be something that is very much a chair, that reflects the essence of what all chairs are or aspire to be. Plotinus says, all shapelessness, whose kind admits of pattern and form as long as it remains outside of reason and idea, all shapelessness is ugly by that very isolation from the divine. And this is the absolute ugly. An ugly thing is something that has not been entirely mastered by pattern, that is by reason, by pattern, that is by reason. The matter not yielding at all points and in all respects to the ideal form. But where the ideal form has entered, it has grouped and coordinated what from a diversity of parts was to become a unity. It has rallied confusion into cooperation. It has made the sum one harmonious coherence. For the idea is a unity, and what it molds must come to unity as far as multiplicity may. And on what has thus been compacted to unity, beauty enthrones itself, giving itself to the parts as to the sum. When it lights on some natural unity, a thing of like parts, then it gives itself to that whole. Thus, for an illustration, there is the beauty conferred by craftsmanship of all a house with all its parts, and the beauty which some natural quality may give a single stone. Okay? Now, of course, what does reflect this realm of the ideal is a very confusing question, since how we have access to this ideal realm is a bit of a mystery. And so these characterizations of beauty, while they have their poetic ecstasy, have very little in the way of empirical content. It's very difficult to see how they're going to help you really judge the beauty of specific objects. However, I mean, these theories are fundamental to the Western tradition. And as a later exponent of such a theory, I might mention Hegel, who associates beauty with, again, the taking of a specific object and its movement toward the ideal. For Hegel, this is more of an historical development, where, in a way, we're moving toward the ideal as the end of history, rather than in Plotinus, where the ideal is the source of objects in the real world. But at any rate, those are some versions of the idealist theory of beauty. Next, we'll talk about a little bit about Aristotle and symmetry and arrangement of parts in a bit.